Hey guys, so it's been a little slow on the achievement front, but I can now reveal why. So I've been invited to be part of the creator beta server for Zenless zzzero, and I've just been going ham testing out every little thing when it comes to QingYi, the new Premier S rank electric stun character releasing in version 1.1. So what I'll show you guys today comes from the creator beta server, which means that everything is subject to change, and you will notice a little couple small things that are missing throughout the video, such as some missing sound effects for QingYi's attacks and voice lines. But that said though, I don't imagine much will be changing in terms of QingYi's actual kit and playstyle, which is a positive thing overall because what I've tried so far has me grinning from ear to ear. So we'll cover everything like we usually do, such as QingYi's kit, her Mindscapes, playstyle and team comps, along with disk drives and engines. But before we delve into that, let's address the elephant in the room. So QingYi is an electric stun character, which may come as a blow for all of you Anby lovers out there. The big question on everyone's mind when QingYi was revealed was that, how does she compare to Anby? Does she play in a similar role? Is her playstyle any different? Is she just a straight up power creep, and if so, how much better is she? Does this mean that Anby is just now straight up garbage tier? Or for those who have already invested in Anby, you might also be wondering, is QingYi still worth picking up? So before we go into the kit deep dive, I just wanted to go over a combat showcase using Anby first, and then we'll go into the exact same fight using QingYi, and I'll just go over my thoughts on the two characters coming from someone who is pretty good at playing Anby. So I start the fight off with a defensive assist, and we'll do this across both fights. In order to make sure that the timing is consistent across both fights, we want to make sure that we eliminate phase 1 entirely, and instead I'll start the countdown timer exactly when the defensive assist parry animation appears. My Anby is running pretty much the best in slot gear. She's M6, level 16 in all talents, rocking Shockstar Disco 4-piece set and Swing Jazz 2-piece, with pretty much perfect substats for a total of 193 impact. And she's also using Kalida's signature engine for even more impact after using her EX skills, so I'm definitely giving her a fair shot here. I do however pick this map because it's a good example of a difficult encounter for Anby, as this particular boss is incredibly aggressive, so it does make it hard to get your optimal combos off, so it's a good example to use to compare to how QingYi handles this aggression. So one thing that I do want to touch upon here is that while this gameplay that's on screen is near perfect, this took multiple attempts to do. I initially wanted to just wing it to show you guys what a more realistic run would look like, to really show you a more accurate representation of what the true difference is. But I knew that if I did that, there would be people crying in the comments saying, actually, you didn't use an EX special here to optimize your combos, so you lost 6.39 efficiency, and if you dodged left instead of right, you would have got more damage out. So to avoid all that, we're just going to go with a really clean run. But the point that I did want to push was that the main downside of Anby that QingYi addresses is the fact that she regularly gets knocked out of her highest days combo. She's very backloaded in her days generation, with the majority of her days being locked behind her ender, and getting interrupted or having to dodge means that you now have to reset a combo from the start. With that said though, a well-played Anby has hands down the fastest time to stun values, as long as she's able to consistently land her full EX combos. And so we end this on 1 minute and 43 seconds, so let's go over to QingYi and see how we do over there. Okay, so with QingYi compared to Anby, I would say that there are two factors that you need to account for when determining if she's worth pulling if you've already got a geared out Anby, and it depends on the kind of player that you are. So what you see on screen here is actually just my first attempt at using QingYi on this fight. You'll see that I do get hit here, and I've just left that in because it doesn't really matter, because it doesn't affect the time at all. She's got so much interrupt resistance in her kit, and her combos never break, so you can kind of just bulldoze through things. My Anby example on the other hand, I had to re-record that about half a dozen times because I would just make a small mistake and get bumped, and then I get knocked out of my combo before I could throw my EX special out. Having this happen would have resulted in a 1 to 2 second loss. So what I'm trying to say is comfort and ease in playing is a pretty big factor. Most people reviewing QingYi will only focus on the maths, and the maths alone doesn't really paint the real picture. Now, if you're a god gamer and you're an Anby pro, then this might not really mean anything to you. So this is something that you need to factor in when you're considering this. The other factor is whether or not the improved kill times actually matter to you as a player. So QingYi is definitely going to give you better clear times than compared to Anby. Even though her stun times might not be as fast, where she excels is the fact that she provides a massive 60% stun damage multiplier to your team. In this example here, we kill the boss in 2 stun rotations compared to the 3 stun rotations that we needed for Anby, and so this shaved off about 26 seconds of total clear time. Now you have to ask yourself, is that 26 seconds significant to you? So personally, I feel as though 26 to 30 seconds is massive from a Shiyu aspect. So you've got 5 minutes to clear 2 sides of Shiyu, which means that you've got 2.5 minutes per side. So being able to shave off 30 seconds on one side is a 20% reduction in clear times, which is pretty significant. On the other hand though, if you've got no interest in S-ranking Shiyu, or you're already easily clearing it at S-rank, then 30 seconds really doesn't matter at all when you consider just content outside of Shiyu. And so before we move on from this topic, I also wanted to reference some testing that I did with all 4 stun characters, looking solely at stun capability. So Anby still does have her place in the game, and I don't think that we really need to worry about QingYi power creeping Anby. We can see from my test that Anby has by far the fastest stun times against medium and high daze bar enemies, and she still does very well against small daze bars, losing only to Kalita. Anby holds the crown for the Queen of Stun, but where she does lose to QingYi is the fact that she has no team buffs outside of the base stun multiplier. So hopefully this helps you decide on whether or not it's worth pulling for QingYi on your account, and if you wanted to see the full video on my test, I've got a link to it down below. Okay, now that we've covered that, let's finally dive into her kit. So first up, QingYi has a unique mechanic called Flash Connect, which can be seen under her health bar right here. It's a little bar with a marker at the 75% mark, and this fills up as she deals electric damage, either from her basic attack, special, or ultimate. Once QingYi hits 75% on her Flash Connect voltage meter, her character will flash on screen, which signifies that she's able to unleash her enhanced charge attack, Enchanted Moonlit Blossoms, and we'll take a look at this in closer detail in a little bit. Now, while she's able to unleash this attack at 75%, going above this mark will give her an additional 1% damage and 0.5% daze for every 1% that we go over. So that's a total of 25% more damage and 12.5% more daze if we cap out at 100%. And so being able to keep an eye on this meter and playing around this mechanic is going to be the key in playing a good QingYi. So with that, let's take a look at her basic attack. And this might take a little while because while this attack looks simple enough on the surface, there's actually so much complexity and nuances to it, but in a good way. So her attack string is a 4-hit basic attack string, but the 3rd hit is a really special one in which it creates an AoE electric field on the ground that stays there as long as you continue mashing the attack button. Once you stop mashing it, she'll unleash her 4th attack, and this can come in 2 variants. If you let go early, she'll do a weaker version, but if you keep the field going on for a few seconds, she'll instead unleash an upgraded version that deals more damage and more daze. Now, the crazy thing about this field though is that 1, it's a massive AoE, which means that you can dash into the middle of a pack and build daze on every single one in a 360-degree area. And 2, you're able to freely dodge attacks while performing it, and you go right back into that same attack after the dodge is over, so no more starting your combos from scratch every time something shoots you. And then lastly, not only are you able to dodge attacks while performing it, you're able to dash to reposition yourself while performing it, so you can actually chase enemies down and then group them together in your electric field of death. You can do this by inputting a direction and pressing the dodge button when enemies aren't hitting you, and as long as you continue to mash the attack button, you go right back into casting your field. And now, the next interesting component about her basic attack is the charge attack. So going back to the Flash Connect voltage meter that we talked about earlier, at any time when this meter has less than 75%, pressing and holding the attack input will have QingYi do a lunge attack with the staff. So this attack here is terrible and you'll never want to use this. However, once you're at 75% or higher, performing the charge attack will have QingYi throw out 5 attacks into a 6th powerful combo ender, which deals a huge amount of daze. So this attack is what you want to be focusing your QingYi gameplay around, building up that meter and unleashing it. However, this attack has a bunch of other cool mechanics tied to it as well. So firstly, this attack has a bunch of hits done on it, which means that unleashing it will lock down most small to medium sized enemies, rendering them unable to fight back and knocking them out of attacks while it's going off. That said, when you're up against large enemies that you can't knock around, you notice that on the last hit where your character glows yellow, you actually perform a quick backdash before unleashing the attack. So this backdash has a bunch of iframes on it and you can use it to perform a perfect dodge, preventing you from getting knocked out of the attack from big hits. Now the cool thing about this charge attack is that you can actually end it early at any time by letting go of the attack input. So you don't need to throw out all 5 hits first, as letting go will immediately have you do the final blow. So this is designed so that you can trigger the perfect dodge iframes on the last hit on demand. This is going to be really useful when you're fighting large enemies with big hits that might cause you to get knocked out of your ending combo. So understanding what enemies are able to do this is going to be really important, as ideally you do want the full combo to go off, but QingYi's kit does give you the tools to ensure that that final blow will always go off. Next up, we've got her dodge attacks, which deal physical damage, so there's nothing really to write home about. It doesn't add to her flash connect meter at all, so it's really just a gap closer. Her dodge counter, however, is very good. It deals electric damage, and as mentioned previously, you're able to continue into her electricity field after performing it. However, this also applies to a raw perfect dodge at any time. So doing this will let you bypass the first 2 basic attacks and go straight into the electric field. Likewise, her assist moves are solid, with them all dealing electric damage and a large amount of stun. Just like her perfect dodge, her quick assist will let her combo straight into the basic 3 electric field. Her defensive assist, however, will not let her cancel into the basic 3, although it does already have an assist follow-up attack which deals a massive amount of daze. QingYi's skill compared to her basic is incredibly simple. Like most characters, her regular special is pretty bad and you don't really ever want to use it, but her EX has a whole bunch of invincibility frames that can get you out of sticky situations. QingYi has a total energy value of 120 and her EX special costs 60. However, you do have the option to press and hold the input to deal additional damage and stun for an extra 20 energy. Personally, however, I prefer to utilize her EX specials to dodge through incoming attacks, so I personally find that 260 energy EX specials is more valuable thanks to the larger invincibility windows that you get access to. Finally, this is her ultimate. It's pretty similar to other stun ultimates in that it has a massive stun multiplier of 1650 at max level, but on top of that, it does recharge your flash connect meter from 0 to full instantly. That said though, I personally would save ultimates for my main DPS in most scenarios, but if you ever need to quickly stun a boss, then it is there. And so in terms of leveling priority, she's going to be a pretty expensive character to level as almost everything in her kit is worth leveling. Her basic is going to be the priority by far, with the majority of days build up coming from it. Next up, her dodge and skill as equal priority due to the rate at which you use both. After that, you can level her assist, followed by ultimates, which you likely won't ever use in most cases. Okay, now let's take a look at her core skill. Check out the wall of text on this one. So let's break this down as simply as possible. QingYi is able to apply subjugation stacks onto enemies through charged attacks. Each stack increases the target's stun damage multiplier by 3%. So this is the bonus damage that they take when stunned. And you can stack this to a total of 20 stacks for a total of 60% bonus damage multiplier. So just as a comparison, Lycon's core passive adds a 35% damage multiplier, so this is just short of double that. When QingYi does her charge attack, every attack will apply 1 stack of subjugation onto the enemy, and then the final blow in which she glows yellow applies 5 stacks of subjugation. So just as a reminder, a full charge attack has 5 hits and a finishing blow, so this applies 10 stacks in total. If the enemy is a normal enemy or an elite enemy, the stack count will then double, taking it to the maximum stacks of 20, and so this means that against small enemies and elite enemies, you only need to do the charge attack once to cap it out, and then on bosses you will need to perform this twice. And then her additional ability is really easy to activate. Unlike most characters, QingYi activates her bonus when paired with an attack type character or someone of the same faction. The fact that currently every single attacker in the game wants to be run with a stun unit makes QingYi a truly universal stun character that can be slotted into almost any team. The bonus gives her 20% extra days on basic attacks, which is absolutely amazing for her, but it also makes her a little bit more effective as a DPS unit, as it increases her attack by 6 for every point of impact greater than 120 up to a maximum of 600 attack. So this however does mean that she'll need a total of 220 impact in order to get full use of this passive. This does however mean that you need to rely on engine passives to hit it, as you'll only be able to hit around 193 impact on your character sheet from gear alone. And so while we're on the topic of hitting her impact breakpoint, the best way that we're going to be able to do this is through engines, and it's going to come at no surprise that her signature engine is going to be her best in slot. Ice Jade Teapot is her signature, and it's a really great engine in that it not only guarantees her enough impact to hit the required 220 breakpoint, but it also acts as a team buffing engine, which is currently unheard of in the current stun engine category. Its passive at P1 gives you 0.7% impact for every basic attack that you do, stacking up to 30 times. So it's safe to say that QingYi is going to be the only character in the game who will be able to unload 30 basic attacks in under 8 seconds. Her electric field hits so rapidly that it's going to be a breeze stacking this to full stacks. It really only takes a little over 2 seconds to cap out, so you'll pretty much have perfect uptime on this as long as you play her aggressively. The second component of this engine is that it buffs your entire team's damage for 20% for 10 seconds whenever you hit 15 stacks. As mentioned earlier, there's currently no stun engines in the game that provides additional team buffs, so this is really valuable. Outside of her signature, her best S-ranked weapon is going to be Kalida's signature, Hellfire Gears. This engine gives up to an additional 20% impact, and the activation criteria is pretty simple to pull off with QingYi. That said though, the uptime on this isn't going to be as high as QingYi's signature, as it does rely on EX specials instead of basics, When running this weapon, it's better to do 260 energy specials instead of charging up an 80 energy special. For A rank weapons, there's the trusty old steam oven, which is a solid A rank stun weapon. The passive is fairly easy to trigger since QingYi builds energy so fast, and building 80 energy nets you the full benefit. In terms of disc drives, this is going to be a no-brainer. Just like any other stun character in the game, your best 4-piece set is definitely going to be the Shockstar Disco set. It grants you 6% bonus impact and also additional days on almost every bit of your kit. For the 2-piece set, you can either go with Swing Jazz for more energy and thus more days, or for Thunder Metal if you're after more sub DPS. QingYi already builds energy so fast that it's not a must going with Swing Jazz, so I would really just go with whatever 2-piece has the better substats. And so with that, what substats are we after? Once again, nothing game changing here. Our number one priority when building stun characters is going to be the D6 slot with impact percentage. Other than that, there's really no stats that really add to a stun character's efficiency, so we're kind of just pigeonholed into building for DPS. So that's going to be crit substats on every piece, followed by attack percentage, and then finally penetration and flat attack. In terms of main stats, for her D4 we want to go either a crit rate or crit damage disc, depending on your crit ratio. Most likely however, this is going to be crit rate, as you'll find that you'll struggle to get enough crit chance without it. And then for her D5 we want electric damage for the highest damage boost, and then as mentioned earlier, impact is the only viable option for her D6. Okay, now lastly, so you've seen her kit, you've seen her playstyle, and you've liked what you've seen. So now you're considering getting duplicate copies of QingYi. So let's talk Mindscapes and go over how powerful they are and what Mindscapes you should stop at for the best bang for buck. So firstly, I would like to say straight off the bat that QingYi is perfectly capable at M0, and thankfully she has no quality of life locked behind Mindscapes. I say this because with Ellen and Zhuyuan's M1s, we've had two back-to-back characters with insane quality of life locked behind early Mindscapes, with Ellen giving her the ability to rapidly build charges and Zhuyuan's M1 extending her on-field DPS time significantly. So I was relieved to see that I wouldn't be pressured into pulling for additional Mindscapes this time around, but that's not to say that QingYi's Mindscapes aren't good. Her M1 lets her start every battle with a full meter of voltage, and then this also increases the rate at which her meter builds up by 30%. So this meter already builds up pretty damn fast at the base rate, so this is going to be pretty insane. You're going to find yourself throwing out enhanced charge attacks left, right and center. Additionally, this is also going to shred 15% of the enemy's defense and increase QingYi's crit rate against that enemy after you land an enhanced charge attack with a full 100% meter. I would say that this Mindscape is the best one to end it on for quality of life and comfort, although it's far from game changing compared to something like Zhuyuan's M1, which makes her feel like an entirely new character. QingYi's M2 affects her subjugation stacks, increasing each stack's stun multiplier by 133% of its value. So at the max core passive level, this brings each stack from 3% to 4%. This gives you a total of 80% stun damage multiplier at 20 stacks of subjugation. Along with this, when hitting an enemy with max stacks, QingYi also deals 15% additional days. So this Mindscape is a straight up numbers boost to both team damage from the additional stun multiplier and also the days build up values for QingYi herself. Next up, we've got M4, and this one gives QingYi a shield equal to 10% of her max health every time she enters the flash connected state. So this state is when QingYi reaches 75% or more energy on her flash connect voltage meter, and the shield itself doesn't have a duration. However, while it doesn't have a duration, it also will not stack with itself. It's simply going to refresh back to 10% of your max health. You do, however, gain 5 energy every time this shield refreshes itself. Personally, I feel as though that this Mindscape is a bit of a crutch for skill issues. QingYi is already such a mobile character who's able to dodge out of everything. She's also got very generous iframes on her abilities, so I feel as though this would get very little use with how I like to play the game, but of course your mileage may vary. If you tend to get hit a lot and you really don't stay on top of your perfect dodges, then you might find a lot more value out of this Mindscape. And now lastly, we've got QingYi's M6. So this is one of those Mindscapes that turn a character who isn't a DPS into a DPS. Well, in this case, still more of a proper sub-DPS. I say this because that while the 100% increased crit damage is huge, and it will significantly increase QingYi's personal damage, the second component of this Mindscape reduces the target's resistances by 20% for 15 seconds. So this is huge and obviously ramps up QingYi's damage significantly, but you're still going to get more value out of this by swapping QingYi out and then bringing your main DPS in to take advantage of the debuff. Okie dokie, so this video has already gotten way too long, so let's wrap it up. In terms of my closing thoughts, I personally will be picking up an M0 QingYi along with her signature engine. I think that she brings a lot of value to my account as she's a universal character, being able to slot into pretty much any team with an attacker. She's also incredibly comfortable to play compared to our current A rank alternatives in Anby and Ben, and she pairs perfectly with my current favorite DPS, Juan. So if you guys have any comments or questions about QingYi, leave them down in the comments. I'm also going to be covering Jane Doe on the Creator Beta server, so if you enjoy the detail in which I went over QingYi, then you can expect a similar video coming out for Jane in the near future.